before I begin, guys, this is Hamza from Gaza. He has a big family of 12 and they all rely on this donation link to survive. Therefore, it would really mean a lot if you could donate to him no matter how little. The donation link will be in the description.
Hi! Okay, I want to show you guys my adorable cat bracelet. Do you see those haunting blue eyes that stare straight into your soul? Whatever's left of those blue eyes because the color's been fading, but regardless, I love this bracelet. It's so cute. And look how it goes with the rest of my outfit. So we can finally put a face to the stalker, I mean the star. I mean the rage, the star that is all the rage, Zade Meadows. And now we no longer have to use our brains to imagine the events of Haunting Adeline to haunt us as we go word the words, because it is getting a Hollywood adaptation. Truly a day for the history books. Okay, to all my dark romance girlies, let's have a talk. This happened to me last year in October or November of 2025 when I was laying on my bed. It was nighttime, my apartment was dark, and I was almost on the precipice of sleep. I was almost lulled into it when I felt a presence on the other side of my bed and somebody strongly pulling my ankle and dragging my body across the bed towards them. My heart had leaped out of my chest and my body was so startled and terrified, but I just could not scream or make any noise or even utter a single word. My lips felt too heavy to move, my limbs felt like dead weight, and there were so many thoughts running on in my head. Like, who is this person and how did they even get inside? Because I know I locked my apartment and nobody can enter through the balcony because the balcony is barricaded. I wanted to ask these questions out loud, but I just could not form or utter any word. It felt like I was slurring at best, like I had been drugged. And that's when I felt it. I felt arms wrapping around my waist, and then I felt a heat at my private part. Something big and warm was nudging and poking my private part, and that's when I heard it. A voice, a male voice, saying things like, "Don't be afraid, it's just me, it's going to be okay." I wanted to scream bloody murder, thrash my limbs, and do anything to not let this fucker assault me. I was scared out of my fucking mind, but I just could not move at all. Then I guess either my arm or my leg, it suddenly flinched like this, and instantly everything disappeared. I was still in my room, it was dark, my apartment was locked, there was no foreign presence, and I was still in the same place on my bed, near the headboard and not on the other side of it. At the time, I was on a pretty heavy sleep medication, and I suspect the medication caused me to have this hallucination. And I say hallucination because I know I hadn't fallen asleep when all this happened. I know it was not a dream. A lot of psychiatric meds like those have side effects like these, but it all just felt so real. The heat at my groin, the touch of hands around my waist, the pull of my ankle, the sensation of my body dragging across the bed, and the male voice. It all felt so real, and I was so startled and terrified. And I know it was not real, and I thank God that it was not real. But even a false experience like this that felt too real had me shaking and terrified. Doesn't my phantom sound like Zade Meadows? Had I got my own Zade Meadows that I was not even aware of, maybe if I could see how classically handsome my rape looked, I would have liked and enjoyed it. Okay, I want us all to look at this 1997 Japanese psych thriller named Perfect Blue, which stars Mima, a pop idol who decides to leave the idol industry to make it big as an actress. However, unbeknownst to her, during her idol career, she had gained a dangerous, toxic, and an obsessive fan, a sasang, who saw Mima's departure from the idol industry to the acting world as betrayal. Mima's experience in this entire movie hits very close to the real life experience of stalking victims and probably what a stalking experience in the real world would look like for dark romance girlies. There are some scenes in the movie that I thought closely parallel some of the scenes from Haunting Adeline, and I'm going to look at those side by side and see if we can really romanticize non consensual and violent acts. So Zade Meadows saw Adeline for the first time at a book signing event, and he instantly decided that Adeline is his. He wants her and only her. His attraction to Adeline has been romanticized in a way where it feels supernatural, that Zade just couldn't help it and the universe itself was pushing him towards Adeline, because just one look at her and he knew she was it for him, that nobody else would ever come close. Let's look at the first time when Mima's ugly stalker saw her, decided she was his, and began his obsession. Do you notice how Memania, her stalker's name, do you notice how he has his hand like this when he's looking at Mima, and his eagle-eyed view is only concentrated on her? And her bandmates, the very less of what you can see of them, is all a blur. Ah, isn't this obsession romantic? I'm sure that's exactly how Zade sees Adeline. His eyes are only for her, and all the other women are merely a blur to him. I guess Memania is indeed romantic and not creepy at all. Adeline is constantly seeing all these roses and notes scattered around her house that tell her that she's constantly being surveilled, watched, and tracked. Zade is always seeing her daily routine. But oh, he used to clip off the thorns from the roses. Even his creepiness is so considerate. Let's find out how Mima figured out that she has a stalker. So Memania, her stalker, created a webpage called Mima's Room that her fans could open and see. There, Memania, posing as Mima, used to write about her daily routine. Her fans obviously thought that Mima is the one who made this page and she's the one writing it, when in reality she was not even aware of it. Then one of her fans tells her that he's always looking into Mima's room. That makes her and us, the audience, very uncomfortable. Because yes, he's talking about the webpage, but we do know for a fact that Memania is indeed always looking into Mima's literal room, her private space that's supposed to be safe, and surveilling her daily routine. Then Mima goes to that webpage, and when she reads how detailed her entries were, entries that she didn't write, she gets terrified and paranoid. Her stalker knew what brand of milk she bought, what her grocery list on a particular day was, and the fact that she moves her right foot first when getting off a train or when entering the bathtub, and so much more. Aw, isn't Memania such a charmer? He knows so much about Mima, even though he's never had a conversation with her. He's so considerate. Totally gives me butterflies. Then comes the scene where Adeline sees Zade for the first time standing in her front lawn, and she dashes outside of her house and goes to him and asks him what the fuck his problem is. Zade just stares at her, licks his lips, and leaves, leaving Addie unanswered. Oh, Zade, he's so hot when he licks his plump lips, and his attraction for Adeline coming out so strong. Let's look at the time when Mima exchanged a smile with her stalker when she met him face to face for the first time. So at this point, Mima was paranoid, anxious, and restless, and she was constantly looking after her shoulder. She enters an elevator, and well, see for yourself. Oh, Memania is so cute. That sweet smile that reveals his crooked teeth would make anyone swoon. He and Zade are so alike. Then come the nerve-wracking scenes where Mima feels like she's seeing her stalker everywhere. He's there at one point, but then in a blink of an eye, he's gone. She is starting to lose her grip over reality, so much so that she resorts to self harm. She smashes this cup of tea between her hands to feel pain, to feel something that tells her it's real. She sees her blood dripping out and mixing in with the leftover tea, only for her to turn to her friend and ask, "Is this blood real?" Yeah, guys, stalkers are so fun. I want one too. Then comes the scene where Zade cuts Arch's hands, a guy that showed sexual interest in Adeline and took her out on a date, triggering Zade Meadows' unbridled jealousy, possessiveness, and wrath. He first stabs Arch, enough not to kill him, but enough to draw out pools of blood. He takes a rose, drips it in his blood, and then sends it to Adeline's porch, who sees it and is horrified by it. He then later kills Arch, cuts his hands off, and then sends those severed hands to Adeline as a warning to not let anyone else ever get close to her. If she does, then the guy pays for it with his life. And this is how Zade got this psychological grip over Adeline, employing fear, but more so guilt, to make her comply and submit to him. Human life, once lost, can never be revived. So now Adeline is in a place where she cannot make any mistakes at all because other people's lives are now going to be determined by her actions. But Zayd, he's just a little possessive. He knows the arch guy is not good for her and he's just looking out for her. You remember how I said that Memania seeing Mima, leaving the idol world behind to make it big as an actress, he saw it as betrayal? So pop idols in Japan and Korea are strongly required to have this youth-like innocent image, a pure image, as they're literally idols for young kids, but they also have a target audience of these middle-aged men, and they become this safe way for men to prey on kids because technically these idols are of legal age. At the same time, their mannerisms are so childlike. They're always supposed to be acting cute, agile, and just having this childlike, innocent image, a person that doesn't really know much about the world. And presenting themselves as this person who is not tainted. Like this virginal lady that takes pride in her modesty that these men fetishize on. However, for Mima to want to break out of this idol image, she decides to take on some very drastic and graphic scenes, which also included a scene to establish that her target audience is now mature adults. Memania, however, felt like this slutty, vulgar version of Mima is not a real Mima, but an imposter that has possessed her real persona being that of her pop idol image, and an image that he must protect, or her fans, seeing her acting so slutty and vulgar, would start despising her. He sends a fan letter to her workplace that instead of her, Mima's boss opened, and suddenly everybody hears this blast. Her boss goes down on the floor, recoiling and holding his bloodied hand, and a note flutters down on the floor saying, "This was just a warning. Next time it's going to be the real deal." I know it's not a direct parallel, but do you see the similarity of Zade and Memania using physical violence and physical harm to make their victims submit to them? Yes, in Zade's case, Adeline was never going to be the target of that harm, and like I said, it's more so guilt that he's deploying against her. But the fact still remains that both Zade and Memania act like they know what's best for Adeline and Mima. They know who Adeline should see, who should be her relationship partner, and they know how Mima should live out her career. It's this entitlement. But Memania, he was just looking out for Mima's career. He knew that in order for her to make it big, she needs to be a pop idol and she cannot lose her fans doing all this raunchy stuff. Her image needs to be protected. He's so thoughtful. Now, culminating to one of the most celebrated psychological scenes in the entire novel of Haunting Adeline, the House of Mirrors. So Adeline is in this carnival where she runs into this maze full of mirrors and gets lost. Zade Meadows finds her, corners her, and then, in a very intense and haunting monologue, declares his love for her. He asks her to see around her and tell him what she sees, and because she was surrounded by mirrors, all she could see was herself, and that's what Zade makes a point out of. He says that loving her is like being in this house of mirrors where no matter where he looks, all he could see is her. No matter how far he runs away to sever this connection, he cannot escape the hold that Adeline has on him. She's literally mirrored in his brain, and it's an obsession he can't escape. The mirror-filled maze literally mirrors Zade's state of mind when it comes to Adeline. You know, Memania also had a house of mirrors where he was surrounded by Mima all over. His room was full of Mima's posters stuck on the wall. He had Masspot, her CDs, her music DVDs, magazines, videotapes, all strong symbols of his strong obsession. And this is probably what a stalker's real life house of mirrors is going to look like. He's probably going to have your face plastered all across his room. Add on to it the fact of this parasocial relationship he thinks he has with Mima, where he literally imagines Mima's posters talking to him and telling him that leaving the world of the pop idol was never her own choice. Like she's confiding into him as if she knows him, as if they're close friends. Then, in the very next instant, an imaginary Mima takes form right next to him in all her flesh and blood, and she's wandering around in his room, has her arm around his shoulders, talking to him, confiding into him. Oh, Memania is so thoughtful. He's buying so much of her stuff, skyrocketing her sales. He's helping her make money. And also the fact that he talks to her posters and imagines her posters talking back to him. He's totally not cuckoo in the head. And now we're finally climaxing into the most polarizing and most infamous scene of the entire novel. This scene has either fans being so hot for Zade Meadows that they try to recreate it with their boyfriends, or readers just feeling so nauseous, threatened, and purely dark. The gun scene. So after Zade kills Arch, he decides to confront Adeline in her mansion and teach her a lesson, imprinting into her who she belongs to, because how dare she disobey him? Zade affronts her, takes out his gun, and slides it over her body. The gun symbolizing his absolute dominance and control over Adeline's life, how she's truly at his mercy. And this is not just about life and death, but also the fact that he controls who she's allowed to see or who she's allowed to befriend. Zade, as he's sliding the gun over her body, asks her to strip, and when she was being too slow, he ripped her leggings apart before thrusting the barrel of a loaded gun into her. The safety was maybe on, maybe off, we don't know, but there's a high chance that he could have accidentally shot her. He her with a gun before leaving her crying on the floor and Adeline being doused in her shame, humiliation, and fear. Oh, but Zade, he did that so Adeline would never go back to dangerous men like Arch. It was tough love. You know what Memania's obsession over Mima and her supposed betrayal against him culminated to? As Mima started taking on more raunchy projects, more adult projects, and she started to depart further and further away from her innocent pop idol image, Memania decided to step out from the shadows and show Mima her place. He decided to take control because even now, believing that this slutty Mima is just an imposter that has taken possession of the real Mima, he decides to rape and murder her. Because how dare this slutty Mima disobey him and taint the image of the pure Mima? She needed to die. He aggressively pinned her down on the floor, tore apart her shirt, and when Mima was thrashing and flailing her arms, he draws out a knife and holds it above her, and immediately Mima's cries died. The knife, like the gun, is again a symbol of Memania's absolute control and dominance over Mima's life, a life that he's not feeling so generous to let her keep at the moment. But again, this is not just about life and death, but also the fact that Memania feels he can control how Mima lives that life. And he doesn't allow her to live her life as an actress. He then takes off his belt, ties her feet with it, and then steps between her legs before pressing his crotch to her groin. Just before he could her, Mima thwacks him on the side of his head with a shoulder, and the rest is history. This almost scene was so graphic. Mima's cry so haunting. And this is literally how real life stalkers abuse and violate their victims. The victims are rendered emotional, vulnerable, and helpless, and they can't do anything as their abuser is taking away their dignity, their consent, their body, before spitting on it and stomping it. And all the while, the victim can only scream, and even those screams are a turn on for these psychopaths. And this is how your real life stalker is going to be. Women, your real life stalker is not going to be a Zade Meadows, and you are not going to be Adeline. There's going to be nothing romantic, steamy, or erotic about your abuse. Your real life stalker is going to be a Memania, and you are going to be a Mima, forever haunted by your own cries and trauma years later, maybe even until the day you die, remembering that night when you lost a piece of your soul forever to your abuser. But oh, it's just fiction that we're enjoying. Haunting Adeline is not real. What's the problem? Yeah, let me get to it. Okay, so a little background. I love reading romance novels. I'm always reading them, and I've peddled my way through a lot of subgenres. I've read the hockey player trope, the single mom trope, enemies to lovers. Heck, I've read Omegaverse, werewolves, fated mates, yada yada. So it shouldn't come as a surprise if I say that I've also read a bit of dark romance. You know what are the three most constitutional and fundamental factors that make a dark romance work? Like, leave one of these out, and all you have is a crime documentary without any hint of romance. First, the guy is so classically handsome that he makes the Apollo jealous. Beauty so enthralling that the entire 8 billion population of this world would objectively and undisputedly declare him stunning. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, while his beauty is in the eyes of all the 8 billion beholders. And I'm gonna go on a limb and say this, but I believe this attractiveness is 99% of the reason that dark romance works. Beautiful people just get an easier pass for being monsters. Do you remember that case where a US teen killed a mother and her 1-year-old daughter in rash driving? However, once his face got viral, and even I'll say this, he had a beautiful face, there were people petitioning for his jail sentence to be lessened. He was being hailed as this most beautiful killer on TikTok. Okay, guys, this is the editor me right now. Bro, what do you mean he has the same birthday as me? He was born on the same day as me. I mean, I'm not a 1999 born, so it's not literally the same day, but what the fuck? What? Second reason it works is because the woman never really has anything to lose when being kidnapped, held captive, or when a guy bursts into her life and takes control of her. She never really has a family. Like, maybe her mom, the only person who ever loved her, died, and her father is a raging alcoholic and abusive, and she can't give two shits if he dies. She never had any friends. She's kind of a social pariah, and she's dangling by a fine thread financially. She's living into the stupid rat infested apartment with rent due. At the same time, she's subdued and burdened by her dad's gambling debts. Life is a fucking nightmare. So when this one man comes who is so powerful, who has connections with other powerful people like him, and who thinks of money that could fix her problems in a snap, and not to mention that he wants her. He wants her to stay healthy and have good food. He wants her to achieve her dreams. He wants her to enjoy the world, and he wants to beat the shit out of her abusive father. And he wants to take her stand against all these people that wrong her. The caveat? He wants to be the one standing next to her until death does them apart, whether she likes it or not. He wants her to enjoy good food with him. He wants her to go explore the world with him. He wants her to live with him. He wants her to share her bed with him. And he wants to be the only person that can violate her, abuse her, and make her cry. And as toxic and twisted this obsession is, that's devoid of any wholesome love, it works because, as psychopathic as the guy is, he's the only one who has ever shown her any genuine care. The women in these novels have the shittiest luck ever. They're as vulnerable as they come. They've never relied on anyone, never had anyone had their back. And this anti-hero, he uses all her insecurities and vulnerabilities to trap her with him. He sees her, something she has been vying for all her life, and he makes it a point to learn about her, her likes, dislikes, her goals, her desires, her dreams. He's the only one who sees her as a person. Except when it comes to sex and sexual torture, that's when he also becomes a disgusting pig, throws consent out of the dictionary, and takes what he believes is his. If she likes it, good. If she doesn't, too bad, she's still getting it. There have been multiple instances throughout the novel where Adeline has vocalized how the stalker has made her so terrified, frightened, and paranoid. And which is why I'm so done with this, that, oh, Zade still cares for her. So what if he abuses her and takes her against his will? He at least sees her as a person after the deed is done. He still loves her. Like, the only saving grace of these heroes and these dark romance novels is that they don't completely objectify their women, that they don't completely sexualize them, that they don't completely break them, that they're 0.1% slightly less evil than all the other options this girl could have. And so this hero becomes the best option that she could have, even though he's still downright diabolical and evil. And the third reason it works is because it's fiction, it's not real, and ink displayed on pages is a safe space to experience the dark, the forbidden. Let me repeat, it works because it's fiction, it's not real, and ink displayed on pages is a safe space to experience the dark, the forbidden. And when it comes to dark romance, the forbidden is a forbidden for many good reasons. So when I see TikTok being hell bent on removing one of the three fundamental factors that make a dark romance work, namely it being fictional, I am concerned and frightened. I'm scared for these women because in the dark romance novels, the woman never really has a choice when choosing her partner. Yes, Adeline chose Zade because Arch or any other option was worse, and also because she was in danger now that Zade had killed Arch and she was the last person seen with him. That now she has to rely on Zade for her protection, but did she ever really have a genuine choice to choose her partner? Wasn't this a choiceless choice? And my dark romance girlies, you are telling me that you would want to make a choiceless choice like this in your real life? I might get a little flack for saying this, but I feel like enjoying dark romance should be a hidden hobby, guilty pleasure, and not something you should boast of in a public sphere or on your social media. Am I trying to induce shame? Not really. But my concern is that when you mainstream and normalize something that at its foundation ignores consent and by extension justifies by adding into it Stockholm syndrome, or that, oh, she initially disliked it and hated it, but now she has learned to love it, so it's okay. You are normalizing something very dark, very dangerous, and you're throwing away decades worth of progress that feminists have risked their lives for. This is literally the age old justification of that, oh, if her body's reacting to it, then she must want it, even if she's saying no. This is the dark ages justification of that we have been trying so hard to nullify and deconstruct. Rape and culture are words that should not be used in one sentence, let alone be used together. And also, another thing I feel is that consensual, non consensual is just a safe way of saying dark romance is built on fantasy, and the only reason consensual non-consensual works is because we readers are privy to a character's thoughts. We know what they're thinking, we know what's going on in their heads. So when a woman is saying no out loud, we are streamlined into her psyche, where she's having thoughts like, his gaze, it made a shiver run down my spine. But for some reason, I also feel heat down in my core. I feel an excitement that I should not be feeling. And this writing device makes it so that we readers are not guilty for enjoying or finding it sexy. It's again employing the same justification that just because a body is reacting to it, she must find it exciting. These are the kinds of thoughts the author plants in her head, that, oh, my heart is beating faster with something else other than just fear. I wonder what that something else is. But mind you, in the novel, in universe, this is still, we readers are still romanticizing, because unlike us, this guy doesn't have access to her thoughts. And honestly, I feel like even if he knew that she somewhat wants it, the fact she's saying no means she is confused. And you should never pursue anything sexual with anyone unless they're 100% sure they want it. Even 99 is not good enough. They should be 100% sure. There's no consensual, non consensual in real life. It's either consensual or. And another big concern that I have with women openly admitting that they want to be stalked, choked, dragged, is that all these psychopathic men who would stumble onto their reels would literally see it as an invitation. They would happily stalk you, abuse you, violate you, drug you. And I'm not trying to victim blame any of you if it does happen to you. My gosh, I hope it doesn't. But the irony is that you indeed are manifesting for and endorsing non consensual acts. Be careful what you wish for, because here's the thing, my dark romance ladies. Your real life stalker is not going to be a Zade Meadows, it's going to be a Memania. Just think about it logically, okay? Do you think a guy like Zade Meadows in real life, who is undisputedly handsome, who stinks of money, and has an influence that reaches far and wide, do you think a man of his standing in real life would need to stalk a woman? If he's a charming communicator, and along with all these attributes, if he's somewhat kind, he can get any woman he wants. He doesn't need to resort to such devious means. But that's a problem for our dark romance girlies, because they only want to be stalked by people like Zade Meadows. But if they're not going to stalk you, then who does that leave? That leaves incels, misogynists, and ugly men. I need to emphasize on the ugly part here. Your real life Zade Meadows is going to be, as I've said for 1,000 times already, a Memania. And also the fact that most common stalking cases have stalkers that the victims already knew, like an ex boyfriend, a coworker, or a neighbor. Rarely does a complete stranger stalk a victim. So if you don't already know a Zade Meadows in your real life, you can be disappointed and concerned and scared that if you do get a stalker anytime soon, it's not going to be him.